Okay, so the topic that I was given was to talk about how we can provide answers through data and the role that UAVs play. Before I get into it, I thought I'd just show you a quick snippet of a TV commercial we've just done in New Zealand, which sort of summarises what we're up to. It's with Isuzu, so that's why there's a bit of branding of Isuzu in it.
So GPS it, we've been around for about 15 years. We're a specialist mapping company. Our customers are growers and farmers right through to corporates such as Zespri and Fonterra. And for us, the vehicles are like a mobile billboard for us, so we want them to represent our brand.
We get around to 700 odd properties a year. We've got an MUX to do more of our drone work. We have a HD TV in the back, which means that our clients can watch what is coming from the drone live. So we've got a full power system that runs from the front with a separate battery.
So that's just a sort of quick overview from the sort of data perspective. We're going to talk about providing answers. So we sort of specialise in creating cross-platform mobile mapping applications. So this is just a shot. I was over here last month. We presented an application in front of 2,500 other developers in sort of Southern California. The application we built was for Fonterra. So Fonterra is a world-leading dairy exporter, which is owned by 10,500 dairy farmers in New Zealand. And earlier this morning, I was having a coffee, and one of the questions came up around like environmental and sustainability in New Zealand, and that's the main reason behind this application. So it's around capturing data on farm to give Fonterra the ability to answer questions about sustainability. So, for example, are the stock excluded from waterways? How do they go about riparian planning? And this here's a screenshot of the nutrient management tool, which is looking at nitrogen use on farm and breaking the farm into a series of different management blocks. I'm going to flip to Kiwifruit and use that more as my case study. So I've been heavily involved in the Kiwifruit industry for a large number of years. I'm also a Kiwifruit grower. I grow around 200 acres of Kiwifruit back in New Zealand. But just wanted to do a quick poll. Who has heard of the gold Kiwifruit or had the gold Kiwifruit? So a handful of you, so mostly the Kiwis. So there are a range of different kiwifruit varieties now in the market. So, but the gold varieties are protected under what we call a PVR. So Zespri owns effectively the IP associated with those particular kiwifruits. And the idea around that is to control how much of it is grown and to sort of limit the market to keep returns up to New Zealand growers. And that's really where we come in. So we do a thing called map-based auditing. So we go out to the orchards and we measure up the orchards to make sure that they're only growing the allocated licence amount. This next shot here is also of a kiwifruit plant, but it's of a kiwifruit leaf. And Alistair touched on it briefly before, but this photo here sent shockwaves through the industry in 2010. This is the early onset of PSA, so Pseudomonas syringae. It's a bacterial disease which basically kills kiwifruit. It led to sort of scenes like this throughout the industry. So kiwifruit vines being cut out. It was really a very uncertain time for the industry. For us, now this is not for the other kiwifruit growers in the room, this is not a very good shot of a kiwifruit orchard, but I just wanted to sort of show that this is what we sort of started with. So we used to drive around the orchards, we had the GPS unit mounted in the vehicle, and that's how we got around and collected the data. With PSA, overnight we went from that to this, but not quite to that extreme, but we had to wear protected clothing on the orchards, we had restricted movements, but the key one for us was that we were no longer able to drive on the orchard, so we actually had to walk around. So some of these orchards can be a reasonable size, so we needed to look at a better way of how can we actually inspect these orchards. And so one of the guys that works for me was mad keen in the RC space, and he was like, well, why don't we could get these remote control helicopters? And this is what I had in mind when he sort of suggested that idea that I'm going to go and buy these things and the boys are just going to smash them into the ground. So this is off the internet, this is not us at all. So he said, no, there's things coming out called drones and UAVs, and so I went to Switzerland in 2011 to the world's first UAV geomatics conference, looking at this sort of technology, and this was sort of my take-home message from that, was that once new technology starts rolling, you're either part of the road or you're part of the steamroller. So, and with the UAVs, being a mapping business, it was like, man, we're in a bit of strife here, we really need to come back and embrace this technology. So I got back to New Zealand and said to Adam, okay, where do we go to from here? He said, no worries, give me some money and I'll build you one. This is not what he built. just sort of when it comes to unmanned aerial vehicles, the sort of range of things that actually pop up on your internet feed. So we started off with a quadcopter, so we built a couple of those. We took it out into the orchard environment more as a sort of a proof of concept to see what we could do. And that really leads us through to where that video sort of finished off before. So we have 6 certified pilots in the company. We run around 15 different drones. They were talking a little bit about the regulations before. So we're one of the few operators in New Zealand that have what we call our Part 102, which means that we can kind of fly outside of the current regulations. So we can go to 500 feet, we can fly at night over crowds. The other one for us is that there's another rule which is 4K within an airport. A lot of the kiwifruit orchards are within 4 kilometres, so we needed an exemption to enable us to fly those. As I mentioned before in the video, you would have heard that we do around 700 jobs per year. So this is just sort of showing how we take that data and how we sort of represent it back to ourselves in an easy to read format. So I can log into this anywhere around the world and just see what's happening with the guides. We can see where the jobs are, so they're scattered from one end of the country to the other. So we want to make sure that we don't want to miss a job, but also that we're doing them in the most efficient manner. And this is just a shot of some of the orchards that we've flown recently this year. Just looks like a whole lot of dots on the map, but if we again sort of re-merge it, so sort of some clustering around some of the orchards that we've been doing. We're now that we've had our CAA sign off, we're really climbing into it. So we'd probably do around 50 odd flights a week now. So I did that a couple of weeks ago. For us, again, sort of following on from what the panellists were saying, UAVs for us are really just a tool now. So, and the main reason that we got into them was purely from an inspection point of view. So here's an orchard that's recently been grafted across, so we can quite quickly see what's going on with that particular orchard. The other one is on our maps we need to write down the number of rows. So you can see from the photo quite quickly, you can count the number of rows up and you can easily jot that onto the map. Another one that we're looking at is, if you look at the block in the middle there, you can sort of see 3 distinct areas within it. So this is the sort of thing that we're trying to pick up and measure on orchard. So the outer 2 sides of that block, it's been grafted to the new gold variety, and the middle block there is still Hayward, the green variety. So you're probably wondering why they don't graft a whole lot over. Like I mentioned before, there's a limitation on the amount of licence that's around, and if the grower was trying to buy that on the open market, it's working out at about the last sale I know of, it would be equivalent to $50,000 US per acre for the right to grow that particular variety in there. This one here is just another sort of a shot of sort of progress through the industry, through the orchard. So this block here, which is the sort of barren sort of block, it's recently been grafted. The block next door, it's a year into grafting, so we can see the canopy's growing up a teepee type system. That's around to try and allow the canopy to establish as quickly as possible so they can get a return on their licence fee. And the block in the far left there is a standard Hayward block, but we have a male and a female variety of kiwifruit, and the lighter green ones is we can actually see where the male plants are. So we can start looking at it and going, well, how do we work out our male to female ratio from a canopy perspective and also a plant numbers perspective. There's talk about sort of multispectral stuff. So this is, I think it's 20 or 30 orchards we did down in Apotiki, just looking at sort of crop figure. But where it sort of gets a little bit interesting for us at the moment is, so this is an orchard. We've run through the NDVI index. And you can see there's a little bit of a variation between the blocks, but when we run it through a bit of a model and do some sort of stats on it, we can kind of cluster those into 2 distinct groups, if you like. The blue ones are actually the gold variety, and the green ones are the green variety. So from an auditing perspective, it's another tool that we can start to use, because at certain times of the year it's actually difficult to tell the difference between the different varieties. It's quite apparent when the fruit's on, but any time leading up to it's a bit of a challenge. Again, this is one of our orchards, so this is just sort of looking at crop health over time. So just as this is from a 5-band multispectral camera, and just looking at how the canopy develops over time. This is just showing some of the resolution that we can get out of it. So this is from the near red edge component of the camera, so we can see in quite detail of what's happening with that orchard. The other one, hopefully this kicks in soon, but this is from the same imagery we're capturing from the drone, we can do a 3D visualisation of the orchard. So apart from just being a pretty picture, we can actually use it for doing some orchard planning. So we can look at shading due to the shelters. For another one, we might be wanting to increase our orchard area, so we might look at removing some of the internal shelters. One of the big challenges for us is actually wind damage, so wind coming into the orchard and rubbing the fruit and causing it to reject, leading to the wastage that Alistair sort of led to earlier on this morning. And so we can remove those shelters and do a quick bit of modelling to see what the impact that's going to have on the orchard. This is a 3D point cloud of that orchard I showed earlier with the multispectral stuff. And you can see in the middle there, there's quite a hole. That's actually due to a historic drainage issue with that particular orchard. And if we take it a step further, and this is just running it through an elevation model, so the hole, if you like, really starts to become quite apparent. Again, just doing some stats on it, we can start to identify holes within the canopy and then work out some sort of percentage canopy cover. So then when we work that backwards against our fruit counts and our production, we can see how much money we're basically losing by having these holes within our canopies. Probably getting pretty close on time, I would imagine. So this is just showing where our orchards are distributed in the Te Puke region, and at a block level, our sort of variation in our crop counts as well. So, and again, Alice has sort of talked about variability. So we've got variability across locations and across blocks as well. I mentioned at the beginning that, I don't think I did mention, but Zespri is the world's largest exporter of kiwifruit. So this is based off some data that we got from Zespri. So this is from one of our orchards last season and looking at where our fruit has actually been shipped around the world. So someone was talking about global, what we define as global, so that's global. And this last one that I want to show, so we went to Climate Corporation on Monday and they had a big globe, so I thought we can do that 3D stuff as well. So this is just a visualisation of showing by variety where our orchard, all our different varieties get shipped around the world for our particular orchard. So it tells the same sort of message, but it just sort of represents it back in a simpler and easier way to read. So seeing what's on there at the moment, that's total production. We're into our gold varieties, so our gold varieties typically go into the Asian market and our green varieties more go into Europe. So hopefully I'm still well on time, so, and I think there might be an opportunity for a question or two, so if there is.
Any questions from the audience?
Baffled with science. Yeah, so the other one that I probably didn't mention at the beginning is that, so we have a number of clients throughout the country, but our biggest client is actually ourselves. So we're into the data capture business. So at the moment, we're really looking at how we apply that technology across our own business and then how we can then scale that up to other businesses. So we'll never promote and sell anything to anyone that we haven't done ourselves. So from the UAV perspective, we've been in that market for 5 years now, and we're actually just starting to mature on what we can do with it and how we can scale it up. And part of it's to do with the hardware and the other part's to do with the software as well. And then looking at how do we get a decent value proposition within that and stack that into farmers and then offer that as a service. So. He's got a loud enough voice. So.
I'll talk very quietly. Matt, having experience of 5 years doing this and having listened to the panel discussion earlier, if you were starting out today with exactly the same problem, what would you do differently?
What would we do differently? Well, to start with, we'd just buy the off-the-shelf technology. So we started off building our own hardware and soon realised that that's not the game for us. It just evolves so rapidly. To be honest now, what we're looking at with some of the drones we use, we're just giving them a year-long lifespan because every year they come out with a new one, there's new technology, there's better proximity sensors, so that would be one thing that we factor in. The other one was we've been waiting for the rules to come through, so understanding how the rules work. I don't think there would be too much more that we would do differently. It's really around understanding and proving the concept as well. No. So the case study was around what we do with Kiwifruit. We do commercial work as well. So we do like civil work, doing volume estimations on quarries. We also do a lot in the farm space. So we've got a plane solution for that. So we fly the planes there, and we're looking at. For us, we've had some new health and safety regulations move in. And so when I first started, my company it's still called GPS It. So we did a lot of GPS surveying, which meant mounting high-grade GPS units onto quad bikes or four-wheeler motorbikes and driving all around the farms. Now, some of New Zealand farms are very steep and it's quite dangerous. So we've moved away from that completely, and now we fly the whole farm with a drone. It takes us a couple of hours to capture the data, and then we've got an up-to-date image that we can use. And then we're also developing another health and safety product on top of that, because we get to, as you saw with the 3D visualisation, we can work out the slope, and then we can go back to the farmer and saying, here's some areas that you should be advising people not to drive on your farm.